Hello everybody and welcome back to the Ultimate Fashion History's 20th Century Style Icon series. You know, the more I work on the icon series, the more I come to believe that what makes somebody a style icon isn't the clothes that they wear, but their relationship to fashion. And this time around, our icon had a wonderful relationship to fashion. Little Edie Beale. Little Edie was suggested to me by UFH group member Hadamez, who always comes up with wonderful outside-the-box suggestions, and I loved this one. But I didn't realize just how much I would love putting this together until I started, so enjoy. I think everybody knows the story of the Beales of East Hampton, but just in case, little Edie Beale, who you see dancing here on her porch in the 1970s, was the cousin of Jacqueline Bouvier, who became Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis. Her mother, Big Edie, was Jacqueline Bouvier's aunt, and the Beales really were that Long Island wealthy aristocratic family of the 1920s and 1930s. They had money, they had connections, and little Edie was beautiful. She had a knockout figure and was absolutely one of those stunning, wealthy debutantes. In the 1940s, she pursued a modeling career, but what she really wanted to be was a star. A star at any cost. She didn't mind what kind of star she was, a dancer, an actress, a movie star, a comedian. She just wanted to be famous. And she could have been. She was absolutely gorgeous, as was her mother. Both of these ladies were legendary socialite beauties. The family house was, of course, called Grey Gardens, this beautiful mansion in the posh Hamptons in Long Island. The family sort of weathered the stock market crash of '29, but then eventually their fortunes dwindled, at which point little Edie's father divorced Big Edie, her mother, left her the house, but also left her more or less destitute. Big Edie lived there alone for a few years, and the house started to fall into terrible disarray. In 1952, she asked little Edie, who was then living in New York and pursuing this so-called showbiz career, to come and live with her. And for the next 25 years, these two ladies lived together in this extremely strange, codependent, incredibly hermetic relationship where they were cut off from the rest of the world. They had been abandoned by all of their socialite friends. They were the black sheep of the Kennedy family, really. And Grey Gardens became increasingly squalid, to the point where there were 52 cats running around and raccoons and bags of garbage and debris, a terrible way to live. And then in 1975, the Maysles brothers, who were documentarians, did really the first fly-on-the-wall documentary about these two ladies called Grey Gardens that just followed their daily lives. So very strange, but also sort of funny. They were both so eccentric. They squabbled, they bickered, they played with their cats, and they just reminisced on a loop almost about their glory days. And here they are, doing just that. Because of Grey Gardens and the surrounding publicity, the world got its first taste of little Edie's unique sense of style. She had some interesting ideas, very original, for example, wearing a shirt underneath a bathing suit. I love this, a scarf wrapped around the head with one end dangling down the back and the other end pulled through the inside of her shirt and left dangling at the bottom. Edie would create her own unique outfits by taking pieces of fabric and tying them together around her body and securing them with knots and safety pins. And who doesn't love her perfectly color-coordinated ensembles, always with that special little touch, for example, the knot in the red skirt there. And of course, everything paired with a fur coat. You'll notice that Edie wears a scarf. in every single picture you see of her. I'm sure you know why, but in case you don't, little Edie suffered with alopecia totalis, really brought on by nerves, and she lost her hair, which she hated, but she made scarves work for her. She had a whole array of fabulous scarves, which she would often wear with her signature brooch pinned right to the top. But sometimes she wouldn't even use a scarf. She'd come up with more interesting ideas for head wraps. Like sweaters. She often wrapped a sweater around her head, tied the sleeves of it around her neck, and then secured it all with her brooch. What about this? Sometimes she just wear a towel around her head, knotted at the back with that brooch on the top. Little Edie was incredibly creative when it came to fashion. Here she is wearing a dress that she's turned into a skirt. And here she's wearing a sweater that she's turned into a skirt. She didn't call her outfits outfits, she called them costumes, and she would change them up to 10 times a day. They were very high concept, and the only way to give you an idea of just how much time and thought little Edie put into her costumes, let's let her tell you herself in one of my favorite moments from Grey Gardens.
This is the best thing to wear for the day, you understand? Yeah. Because I don't like women in skirts. And the best thing is to wear pantyhose or some pants under a short skirt, I think. Then you have the pants under the skirt. And then you can pull the stockings up over the pants underneath the skirt. Mm-hmm. And you can always take off the skirt and use it as a cape. So I think this is the best costume for the day.
Okay.
I have to think these things up, you know.
I must have seen that clip a million times, and I still don't quite understand the convoluted explanation of that outfit. The pants under the skirt, so you can pull the stockings up over the pants under the skirt. A skirt which isn't even a skirt, it's a sweater fashioned into a skirt by tying it around the waist and pinning it with a safety pin. But what gets me is that little plaintive remark she makes at the end. I've got to think these things up, you know. I think what she was saying there is that she wants to be stylish and to follow fashion and have great outfits, but she has no money. She is wearing old clothes or borrowed clothes, and she has to recycle them in all kinds of different ways. And although her outfits may look a little bit eccentric, she was really just doing her best to cobble together 1970s fashion. Take a look at her here with the headscarf and the draped neckline. Really, she's just playing the 70s fashion game as best she can. Here's little Edie again in a very chic ensemble, I think. Just 70s fashion, but done the little Edie way. And a lot of people have actually made fun of her perfectly coordinated outfits. Here she is in all red, but here's Bianca Jagger in all red too. They're essentially playing from the same deck of cards fashion-wise, aren't they? But what really makes little Edie a style icon is that although some of her fashion ideas were a little strange, they were actually so far ahead of the fashion curve that she was wearing things and creating things that would become the mainstay of runway today, like this famous skirt. Sure, it does look a bit bizarre by 1975 standards, but come on. Don't we see something similar every season on the runway? And what about her penchant for wearing sweaters or shirts under swimsuits? Every season, we get underwear on the outside. It's become so ubiquitous that you can even wear your bra on the outside as a street-style statement and nobody bats an eyelid. Speaking of eyelids, even her makeup, which many people have commented upon as being rather strange, this one defined line just at the corner of her eye, well, that's become a runway fashion look too, hasn't it? And little Edie was wearing visible safety pins to secure her clothing well before punk rockers and a long time before Versace. She was a trendsetter without even knowing it. The world may have forgotten about Little Edie, Big Edie, and Grey Gardens had it not been for a real revival of interest in the story. In the last decade, in 2006, a Broadway musical opened about these ladies' lives, and then in 2009, HBO produced Grey Gardens, starring Jessica Lange as Big Edie and Drew Barrymore as Little Edie. It told the story of the making of the documentary, and both of these actresses were so unbelievably superb that when you see the HBO movie, you sort of forget that you're not watching the real Beales. It's sort of confusing, and they both looked so much like them. In fact, when I was putting this video together, whenever I found a picture of Little Edie, I had to double check to make sure that it wasn't Drew Barrymore in Grey Gardens. I want to make a note about the swimsuit that Drew Barrymore wears over a tiger print top. This isn't a reproduction. It's actually from the same batch of swimsuits that Little Edie actually wore. The HBO movie spawned a frenzy of excitement and interest in the story of the Beales and Grey Gardens, and fashion particularly kept going back to Grey Gardens as a source of inspiration. Take a look at this fashion editorial here. And what about this one here? Magazine after magazine did an homage to Little Edie, or Little Edie and her mother, these ladies of Grey Gardens. John Galliano brought out an entire collection that paid tribute to Little Edie's very unique style. I love some of the details in this collection, like the hood that looks like it's fashioned from a cardigan and fastened with a brooch, completely Little Edie. And why not? So what happened to Little Edie Beale? Well, about a year after the original 75 documentary came out, her mother died, and Little Edie finally felt she was free to leave Grey Gardens. And because of the movie, she was starting to become something of a cult figure. There she is with Andy Warhol. But look at her fabulous outfit. Let's take a closer look at this wonderful ensemble of the long sheared gloves and that skirt. A purple linen skirt over which she has wrapped, it seems, a pale pink scarf and secured it with a brooch at the hip. She really did have a great fashion sense. And that's one of the photographs that Andy Warhol took of her. And she looked so happy because finally she was becoming famous, which is all she wanted all along. When she turned 60, she started performing in cabaret to terrible reviews, but to a bit of a cult following. She eventually sold Grey Gardens, moved around for a bit. She lived in New York, she lived in California, she lived in Montreal, finally settling in Bal Harbour in Florida, where evidently she had lots of friends, lots of fans, and went swimming every day. She lived to a ripe old age. She died when she was 86 years old in 2002, and up until the very end, she still had her signature look. And I honestly believe that the scarf she is wearing here, and what I think may be the last photograph of her ever taken, might be the same scarf exactly that she wears in the documentary when she performs her famous patriotic dance. She was staunch. As she spells it out for us, literally, S-T-A-U-N-C-H. She was a staunch lady, and a lady with genuine style. She had elegance, she had dignity, she had fashion flair, and what makes somebody an icon above everything else is the confidence in the way that they dress, and she certainly had that. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of 20th Century Style Icons on the Ultimate Fashion History. You can contact me through my website, amandahalle.com. Join our Facebook group. It's loads of fun. And you can give me ideas for other 20th Century Style icons so I don't have to think these things up myself, you know. I'm back every Wednesday and Saturday with more episodes, so just click the little circle to subscribe. And as always, thanks ever so much for watching.